You're listening to Australia's national youth radio station, Triple J. For more info, go to triplej.net.au.
Thanks to the intervention of the ABC Board and the generous support of the Macquarie Bank, Triple J reluctantly presents the following 2 hours of unbiased, fair and balanced coverage of the week's topical issues. Would you please be upstanding for the national anthem? And your hosts, Stirling Addison LLB and guest, as we present Restoring the Balance.
It is Restoring the Balance. You're with myself, Stirling Addison, and from the Family First Party, Spencer Penrose. 2 hours of unbiased conservative comment here on the ABC. It is a luxury and a rarity. If you've been listening to the show before us, you may have noticed a sullen tone to Richard Kingsmill this evening. I will explain. For the last week, Richard Kingsmill has been plaguing me to listen to a demo tape of his. It is, as he calls it, his ticket out of this dump and onto commercial radio. You see, Kingsmill has created an alter ego, DJ Fartman, and his dream is to go to a rival station where he would become the wacky offsider to Kyle Sandilands. Now, I have pointed out on numerous occasions how hopeless is his dream, for two very real reasons. Firstly, Kingsmill lacks the intellectual capacity to match wits with Mr. Sandilands, whose talent strides the landscape of commercial radio like a colossus. And secondly, DJ Fartman, as Kingsmill would be known, would be a poor substitute indeed for the widely respected Jackie O, whom all Australia adores for having talent and beauty in equal measure. So dream on, Kingsmill, dream on. Coming up tonight on Restoring the Balance, the idiocy of Live Earth Day will be exposed when we chat to Chief Scaremongerer Dr. Michael Molitor. That and so much more, including David Hicks back in our midst. We will be talking about that shortly, and the dangerous terrorist who is the Dalia Lama. That and more ahead on Restoring the Balance. We are indeed heretics in the new truth, apparently, of global warming. We are speaking to Dr. Molitor, Dr. Michael Molitor, a supposed climate change expert.
Sending a Molitor cocktail.
Yes, our way, it would seem. Speaking of random acts of politically motivated violence, Spencer, you noticed the return of an unwelcome son to Australia today.
A very big day for evil in Australia. I hope the Hicks apologists are happy today. Triple J poster boy David Hicks is back on Australian soil. In fact, in my neck of the woods in Adelaide, Yatala prison is where he's going. I'm not sure if you saw the footage on the news. You had David there getting off the jet, the five-star jet, as a matter of fact, and the police took him to Yatala prison from the RAAF Air Force Base.
Edinburgh, yes.
They had to shake off the media, though. It's a 25-minute drive, and I understand that the police convoy took the back way out and to lose the tail, lose the tail of the media, to shake off the cameras.
Yes, because it was, of course, a welcoming committee. Thousands of friends of the ABC were there.
That's right.
To welcome their hero back.
Communists.
Yes. But they fled from the Air Force Base?
Yes, and I have to concur with Bob Brown on this. I have to concur. It was a waste of money. I mean, for starters, they went from the RAF Base Edinburgh to Main North Road, then left down Grand Junction Road to Yatala Prison.
Yes.
Here's what I would have done to save some more money. Come out of the RAF Base in Edinburgh, leave on the Heaslip Road side, take advantage of the single-lane traffic. At high speeds, you can shake off those cameras. There's no traffic lights. The only impediment is a railway line, now and again frequented by the Garn.
Yes.
It's a 90-kilometre-an-hour zone. Take a right down Waterloo Corner Road, left down Port Wakefield Highway, slightly out of your way, but what you lose in time you make up for with the slightly higher speed limit, 100 kilometres an hour.
Yes.
You get to the Jeps Cross intersection, once again you turn left down Grand Junction, get to Yatala that way. Or you could just do the even simpler thing of leaving the Heaslip Road side, turning left down Waterloo Corner Road, going through Salisbury, over the Main North Road, intersection, straight onto Smith Road, right down Bridge Road, follow that to Grand Junction Road. Even that would be cheaper than the route they took.
Yes.
Or you could, for that matter, go Heaslip, left down Waterloo Corner, over Main North, onto Smith Road, right down Bridge Road, follow that pretty much all the way, go left at Montague, right down Walkley's and Ingle Farm, go past the Ingle Farm Shopping Centre, till you get to Grand Junction Road and turn right down that. In about 2 minutes, you'll see Yatala Prison on your right. That would have been a cheaper way to go, because what you lose on the lights, you make up for on the hills. and the aerodynamicity of that.
Well,
that would have been my preferred route.
Yes. So the $500,000 for the cost of chartering the jet would have been offset by the litre or two of petrol the quickest route would have saved. Is that what you're saying?
That's my way of thinking.
Yes.
But they wouldn't consult me. They wouldn't consult you.
No.
The Restoring the Balance crew.
No. No, they don't want. I was thinking about how he may be further punished on the plane over here.
Right.
And I can only hope they made the trip as miserable as possible and as uncomfortable as possible by giving Hicks his complimentary Peter Morrissey cotton pyjamas 2 sizes too small. Now, those of us who fly Qantas first class will know how truly irritating that is.
That can be very annoying.
Yes, so I hope they really stuck the dagger in and gave it a couple of twists.
Absolutely.
But the whole Yatala thing is the serious prison thing is very amusing, because I was speaking to Senator Bill Heffernan about the very topic, and the senator was saying that many of Hicks' fellow prisoners would be keen to show Hicks their rocket launchers, but they wouldn't be resting them on his shoulder. And then he said, in case you don't understand, he was talking about sodomy. Yes, he did.
I see.
Yes. And then he began a series of mimed thrusting motions while aggressively snorting and pretending to pull the hair of his prison paramour, just to get the point across. Look, the senator kept doing that for a good 30 minutes, even though we'd left the room.
He's a colourful individual.
Yes.
He certainly is a firebrand personality in the Australian walk of life. I picture David Hicks on the plane, legs shackled, arms shackled, watching some Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood, or something on the in-house TV screens there in the cinema. Still, even more comfortable than economy in a Qantas flight.
I wouldn't know.
No, of course.
I wouldn't know.
Well, I had to do it once. I lowered myself. I just wanted to feel what the people were feeling.
Why bother? Why bother? I will say this, though. Now he is in captivity, there is a plan for Julia Gillard to breed with him. That is the plan.
She's finally found her man.
Yes, to breed Hicks in captivity, because I'm telling you why, Spencer. Hicks will be out in time for the federal election, where he will be the ALP's star candidate in the seat of Norwood in South Australia.
And I believe if he can squeeze it in, because he's got a busy timetable, he's also doing shifts here at Triple J.
Yes.
I heard.
Well, of course, he's already got his own quiz show, Hicks and Specs. Yes. Trivia about terrorist attacks.
It's a great idea.
Yes.
So he's already pitched that. He's got the pilot up and running.
It's been greenlit.
It's a pilot that he would probably hijack.
Yes, that's a very good point.
So what you're suggesting is that Julia Gillard would smuggle David Hicks' semen out of Yatala prison.
Yes.
To inseminate further down the track.
It would be. She would gladly bear his child. Of course. Like father, like son, for 9 months in a confined space. Of course, we'd see Terry Hicks protesting the pregnancy of Julia Gillard, no doubt,
Probably.
in a cage somewhere.
Yes,
but
indeed.
It's just ridiculous.
Wow.
It is ridiculous.
The mind boggles.
We do want to turn to our fellow Triple J Conservative listeners. The phone number here, 1300 0555 36. Other ways that David Hicks can be punished in his remaining time in prison. And Spencer, your suggestion also, you wanted to know what movie he may have been shown on the plane over.
I thought it would have been something punishing.
Yes.
Something that would make him realise the error of his ways.
Yes.
Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood was mine.
Yeah, An Inconvenient Truth would be mine.
Fahrenheit 9/11.
Yes.
Why not?
I don't think the plane has enough power to carry a video showing the obesely overweight Michael Moore, or to carry a DVD bulging with that many untruths.
Yes. I believe his new movie is called Sicko, is it not?
Yes.
Premiered at the Cannes Film Festival.
Yes.
It's like a scathing insight into the American healthcare system.
Another error-strewn polemic that will be ignored by all right-minded people. 1300 0555 36. The movie that David Hicks watched on the plane on the way over, you can speculate. Or, if your bent runs to this, ways that we can further punish him.
Let's get creative.
Yes.
Absolutely. All your creative juices into some sort of interesting, funny to us punishment that could be doled out on David Hicks.
Yes. So give us a call, or on 1300 0555 36, give us a call if you have a suggestion for either of those, or if you need to know how to get from Yatala Prison to RAAF Edinburgh or the other way around.
I will provide you with all the best, the quickest and the cheapest routes to take.
This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J.
Restoring the Balance on Triple J. Your taxes barely at work.
This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J. You are with Spencer and with Stirling. Shortly we're talking about a short-haired religious fanatical terrorist who is shortly to visit us. I'm talking about the Dalia Lama. But we are talking about another short-haired religious fanatic who's back in the country. Although, David Hicks, I'm talking, of course, about Spencer.
The most dangerous man in the world.
In the world, yes. He is back safely under lock and key at Yatala Prison in Adelaide. Although recently the court sketches showed him with long hair.
That's right. Didn't even have the decency to have a trim before fronting the court.
It may explain the severity of his treatment. And clearly the Americans, after 5 years, failed to beat out of him the secret for younger-looking hair.
That's true.
He did not reveal that, apparently. But we are asking, it is a double-headed question this evening, Spencer, isn't it?
We want people to get creative with this one.
And we are asking them what?
We were asking exactly what movie would have been screened to David Hicks on his flight from Cuba to Adelaide, and also what punishment can we dole out to him to make his experience at Yatala Prison in South Australia all the more horrible.
Yes.
Is that right?
All the more rehabilitative.
That's what we're trying to do.
Because that is what we are trying to do in there.
Yeah.
It is a noble thing that the state is doing, although we would prefer at least 15 years of rehabilitation for David Hicks. Unfortunately, the justice system has failed us. In a moment of weakness, it has lavished upon him the luxury of a short sentence. We don't agree.
I can't even believe that they let him watch a movie, for starters.
It's extraordinary.
I mean, that in itself... I mean, really, that's a perk, isn't it? I mean, that's like a little treat that you would give someone who perhaps has been doing the right thing.
Yes.
In prison.
Yes.
If you've been working, if you're on good behaviour, maybe you could watch a movie.
Yes.
But what has he done?
He should have been dangled feet first from the rear cargo door at 35,000 feet. And I say that on behalf of all Triple J listeners. Bill from Sydney. Bill, thank you for joining us.
Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
We're exceedingly well. Bill, if you were in charge of delivering further punishment to Bill Hicks, or not Bill Hicks, David Hicks, what would you do?
Well, seeing as he has been detained for a very good reason, obviously, in Guantanamo for so long.
Yes.
For the past 5 years.
He's
missed the last few seasons of that absolute smush shown on Channel 10, Big Brother.
Yes.
I believe, we should actually force him to endure the pain that we've had to put up with for the past 3 or 4 years that he's missed out on. And I think that would be perfect punishment.
I mean, I would suggest that he's suffered enough. But you think all past 4 seasons, is that what you're suggesting, Bill?
Yes. I mean, I've suffered for the past 4 years. I don't see why he should miss out on it, so...
Am I correct in assuming that it is Gretel Colleen who is the host of that show?
Unfortunately, yes.
Because... she is as intoxicating a temptress as you could wish to put on the screen, and I would be worried that Hicks would break his bonds and break through his cell and run to wherever Miss Colleen is.
Absolutely.
Because that's what any blue-blooded man would do.
I could see that happening, couldn't you, Bill?
Possibly. I was thinking more along the lines of putting up, especially last season. I mean, we all must agree, surely, that last season was possibly the worst television that was ever produced by Channel 10.
So you're talking about a man who's been incarcerated for 5 years, wanting to sit down and watch for 5 years people who are themselves incarcerated.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we've all had to put up with it, so why should he get away with it?
Well, I'd suggest, Bill, that you didn't have to put up with it. You do have the right and the ability to turn the television over and sample any of the other fine commercial stations.
True. Yes, but, I mean, it's Channel 10, it's fine. Unfortunately, the programming on Channel 7 and Channel 9 wasn't up to much chop, and there was no way I was going to watch the left-wing rubbish on SBS or ABC.
Excellent.
I was kind of left to no choice. I mean, what could I do?
Isn't one of the Big Brother housemates at the moment a young Liberal, Bill, do you know?
I don't know, actually. I haven't checked in with my local branch in the last few months.
I believe he may be
sure.
a colleague of yours, Stirling.
Well, I'll have to investigate that.
And it would be nice to see those two go toe-to-toe.
Yes.
David Hicks and the young Liberal from the Big Brother house.
Yes.
Away they go.
Yes.
You know who would win?
Yes.
Freedom would win.
Freedom would win.
Right would win.
Yes. David Hicks, hater of freedom. Bill, you're always welcome at your young Liberal branch. Head along.
The wonderful seat of Vaucluse in Wentworth, I believe.
Yes, that is a hard part of the world to be a young Liberal. Thank you, Bill.
Definitely. Thank you.
Jason from the Hume Highway, from one of the nation's most important pulsing arteries.
That's it, mate. Yes. How you going?
Very well, Jason. We're speculating as to what movie David Hicks may have watched on his $500,000 flight home.
Well, they probably wouldn't have showed the movie like you sort of said, because it's, it shouldn't be sort of high class and you shouldn't have the luxury of watching a full-length movie.
Yes.
Maybe they showed him that prison break program that shows on Channel 7. They showed him a couple episodes of that, and he could have been thinking, oh, gee, why didn't I think of that?
Yes, now...
He's the intelligent person that he is.
Explain to us Prison Break. It's, I think, a bunch of men breaking out of prison, hence the term Prison Break.
That's it. But him being the super intelligent terrorist that he is, he couldn't come up with that idea himself.
I'd be surprised if he ever came up with the idea of wiping his own butt. He's a very stupid man, but conversely, the world's most dangerous man, as Spencer has pointed out.
That's true.
Without a doubt. I'm glad that he's behind bars, and as a matter of fact, I'm glad he's in South Australia because, I live in Queensland, so he's a long way from there.
Yes.
I haven't thought about this, but obviously the plane came from Cuba to Adelaide.
Yes.
Who would be catching the return flight back to Cuba, do you think?
I would hope another terrorist.
Same here. That's who I would hope.
The Dalai Lama.
Why not?
Yes.
Take him back there. I was going to suggest Kevin Rudd. Maybe go over there and just sit down with the cross-legged in front of Fidel Castro.
Yes.
And get some policy ideas.
Yes. Well, clearly he already has done that. Thank you. Rob from Brisbane.
Yes, Stirling. How are you?
Very well. Rob, punishments for David Hicks.
I think I've got the ultimate answer for him. I think he should spend a week with the losing politician in the next election.
Well, that would be Kevin Rudd for starters.
Who would want to spend a week with Kevin Rudd?
Well, exactly, but I think you could waive the 15 years imprisonment for him because if he does that, he'd be doing Australia the service.
Yes, kind of doing his porridge in dog years.
Exactly.
Yes.
I think a week is more than enough and definitely waive the 15 years for him.
Yes, well, he could, do the Kokoda track with Kevin Rudd and then get the helicopter back for the return leg. Or he certainly wouldn't want to ask Kevin the time because it could be dawn service and you never know when that is. Dawn service could be at 3 p.m, provided that fits into the schedule at 7.
Of course. It's very, very
Are you with me, Rob?
I'm with you.
Good for you, Rob. That's a wonderful idea. David Hicks, Kevin Rudd.
Yes.
I think it's it's an odd couple.
Yes.
And you know what it is? It's like a buddy sitcom.
Yes, it is the original Odd Couple.
It could be the makings of something quite entertaining.
Culminating in the scene where they fall asleep in bed together and Hicks chews his own arm off to get away. Yes, as many a woman has done, I'm sure, in his company. Patrick from our nation's capital, Canberra. Patrick, we're talking alternative punishments for David Hicks.
Well, first of all, I'm glad to see that you're not adhering to the ALP's affirmative action policy. I'm the fourth male to call, and there's been no females yet. I'm quite happy about that.
Women who listen to this show generally need the permission of their husbands to call, and there's normally a lag between, I don't know what the women generally who do listen to the show are doing. They're either running small businesses or they're cleaning up after the kids.
That's right.
And they're getting husband a beer.
Well, that's when they can get access to the telephone.
Yes. Either that or they are suffering the monthly plague.
Yeah. I'm not going to comment on that.
Yes.
But look, I thought the best punishment for Mr. Hicks would be to be forced to listen to the ABC.
Yes.
But more particularly, be forced to listen on Sunday night to this sort of crap.
Yes.
Thanks.
It would be hard. It would be hard. 2 hours of the truth.
Yeah, that's right.
2 hours of correction.
In his face, in his grill, giving him some what for. Is that what you're suggesting, Patrick?
Patrick's gone. No. Patrick's made his point and has bravely retreated. He wanted to debate furiously with us, but had to go.
Of course, if he listened to other shows besides this one, then he would find like minds. He would find ideas for further forays into the Middle East.
Yes, but you've got to understand Patrick's position in Canberra. He's picking up the phone, he's ringing us, and he's only got half an hour to buy some hardcore pornography before the adult supermarket closes.
That's true. That's why he's got to go. He's a busy guy.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So thank you for your call, Patrick. This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J. Give us a call, 1300 055536. Ways we can punish David Hicks further. Or would you like to speculate, Spencer?
Exactly what movie he was watching on the flight from Cuba to Adelaide.
This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J.
You've got Mark on the line.
Amazing. So whereabouts are you at the moment?
I thought maybe I could pretend that we were sitting next to each other. But I guess I blew that with the I've been there once before. So.
Do you mind if we continue with the rest of the interview, pretending that you are sitting next to me, though?
No, okay.
I will pretend that we're old friends as well.
Hey, that's a nice sweater you're wearing, Ollie.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Top shelf, you know.
With Remy Bond.
Boy, is it ever terrific.
Restoring the Balance on Triple J. Your taxes barely at work.
Arguably the week's defining story, apart from David Hicks, Spencer, was will they, won't they meet with the Dalai Lama, that being Kevin Rudd and our Prime Minister John Howard?
That's right, the Dalai Lama. And looking at his background, the flat-out refusal from the Dalai Lama to accept the peaceful Chinese way of life, nothing short of an act of intolerance, wouldn't you say? I mean, it's also no surprise that you mentioned this a few minutes ago, that the Dalai Lama is in Australia at the same time as David Hicks.
Yes.
Coincidence or a planned rendezvous? You be the judge. I mean, all I have is an image of the only visitor Hicks getting at Yatala prison as being the Dalai Lama. Nothing but a pane of glass separating the two, the Dalai Lama disrobing and the scene descending into something reminiscent of that memorable scene from Midnight Express.
Yes.
Not sure if you recall. And being a spiritual man, Stirling, and a true Christian, I don't know all that much about the Dalai Lama. I understand. Martin Scorsese, was it? I think he made a film about him called Kundun.
Yes.
Always up for upsetting right-thinking Christian folk, Martin Scorsese.
Yes.
The Last Temptation of Christ, Kundun, and I think all of Scorsese films at some stage. I haven't seen Kundun yet, but I would imagine that the Dalai Lama at some stage beat Joe Pesci up with a baseball bat and then threw him into the boot of his car.
Yes.
I imagine that's what happened.
Yes, I refuse to see it on the grounds that it will contradict a prejudice of mine, which is as sound a reason for not seeing a movie as any I've ever heard.
And did you actually be in the audience of the Dalai Lama? It's a couple of $100, I think.
Well, of course it is.
He charges. And I think he woefully undercharges, because people in need of religious sustenance, you can get a lot more money out of them.
Yes.
They are vulnerable, they are ready to part with some of their cash just to get some spiritual enlightenment. And where is that money going? Because for far less, you can get a much better piece of spiritual theatre at the Assembly of God, of course.
Of course, right Christian.
That's right. The Dalai Lama offers no rock music, no pyrotechnics, no dry ice, no showmanship, no sense of razzmatazz.
I would, in fact, call him the Dalai Lamo. Yes, for a considered lack of showmanship. And he will come here and preach hatefully and urge his followers to commit heinous acts of antisocial non-violence. And I know the police will be ready to meet them. To meet that non-violence with violence.
Yes.
And anyone who has sat through Richard Gere's Can We Dance will know what it's like to be held hostage by a Buddhist extremist.
That's right.
These people are out there. We have seen Steven Seagal, who is a well-known Buddhist, hijack a ship. It may have been a movie, but nonetheless...
That's what Buddhism is all about.
Yes.
According to Steven.
Hijacking an Iowa-class battleship. And I noticed Kevin Rudd... so impressed with the Dalai Lama that he's taken up yoga, and Rudd has a new position. It's called the backflip.
Right.
Yes.
Excellent.
It's called the backflip.
And I'm sure he will use that a lot in this upcoming election period.
Yes. Now, you mentioned China, and you made a very good point. And originally, our Prime Minister would not see the Dalai Lama because of the whole China thing. And the Prime Minister would have rightly pointed out that we have no business meddling in the affairs of a country whose human rights record we may not like.
That's right.
And that should be our policy.
I agree.
So Dalai Lama, a man, as we say on this show, with more hair than brains.
Kevin Rudd meeting with the Dalai Lama, is he looking for some divine assistance? You know, the big questions, such as if a tree falls in a Tasmanian old-growth forest and there's no loggers to hear it, will he still have the support of the Forestry Union?
This is an excellent question.
What is the sound of one hand clapping? I know what the sound of one pair of hands clapping, and that's because I heard it all during the ALP conference.
Yes, well said.
Just one pair of hands.
One pair of hands.
The rest of it was crickets and the sounds of the ocean.
Yes, one pair of hands belonging to the union movement.
That's right, that's right. There's a sound of one hand doing something else, if you catch my drift.
Yes.
At the Assemblies of God Church, the only question we like to ask is, what is the sound of thousands and thousands and thousands of people happily clapping? That is a typical Sunday morning.
Yes. Take that, Dalia Lama, as we've said before. Yes, you're not welcome here. Pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and rack off back to Kundun. This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J. To get a song programmed on Triple J, it's very easy. You simply put your CD in the G-string of a late teen girl and send it into Kingsmill office. What do you know? It's on high rotation the next day.
That's exactly how it works.
Or she puts it in what she calls the CD rack. Need I say more?
You don't.
Need I say more?
It's an image.
I want to play you this grab of audio from Robbie Buck's show. Robbie Buck, of course, learnt the art of broadcasting in Soviet Russia.
Is that so?
Yes, yes. He is an unthinking mouthpiece for the left side of politics. And here he is speaking to Dr. Michael Molitor. He's a climate change expert helping to organise the little party that the fairies at the bottom of the garden are having called Live Earth. And here is an example of the ABC going the hack, applying the blowtorch to the belly, if you will, to Dr. Michael Molitor on the issue of climate change. Take it away, Robbie.
Robbie Buck with you this afternoon. We are jumping on the environmental bandwagon. I know it's a bit late because Rupert Murdoch came out, 2 weeks ago and finally said, OK, all right, global warming really is happening, and suddenly like that. A lot of the editorials changed in newspapers around the world, which was interesting to see. But we've got a real expert in this afternoon, Dr. Michael Molitor. Now, sure, he's got a PhD from Cambridge University, and sure, he's worked at Harvard and some of the greatest universities in the world on this very subject. But the only way that we know he really is an expert in this area is you've worked in Hollywood for a little while.
Yes, I did.
What were you? What did you do?
I was a science advisor on the film The Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah, you know you've arrived then, don't you, when that sort of thing happens?
Yeah, that's the big time.
Was it fun?
It was fantastic. Yeah. It was great fun.
So was that actually, I mean, Hollywood is usually, well, kind of rubbish when it comes to facts and stuff. Was it actually based on any fact at all?
Yeah, the basic idea that you could have a change in the Gulf Stream, the North Atlantic, and everything would get cold is real.
Is it?
But of course, what they did in terms of all the craziness with the tornadoes and giant hailstorms is probably not realistic.
Artistic license.
Yeah,
fair enough. Yeah.
Yes. Spencer, Dr. Michael Molitor spent 7 weeks in hospital after the brutal lashing he got from the wet lettuce leaf yielded by Robbie Buck.
It must be daunting to be interviewed by a man who takes all his politics from old issues of Juice magazine.
Yes.
Robbie Buck.
Well said. Questions written by Michael Moore there. Asking about Hollywood breathlessly like he was Angela Bishop.
Like he was on the red carpet.
Yes.
With his own little microphone.
Robbie Buck, you are no Richard Wilkins. Leave it to the experts. We do have Michael Molitor on the phone to tell us about Live Earth Day, which will stop global warming in its tracks, we believe. Apparently temperatures will return to normal as soon as the music stops.
On 7th of the 7th, 07 this year. I mean, it would be interesting if it was last year. And then it was 6th of the 6th, 06. And then we know exactly who is behind this concert and indeed climate change.
Well said.
The myth of.
Exactly, well said. He is a founder and CEO of Carbon Shift Australia Limited. He is, of course, heavily involved with Live Earth Australia as a climate change expert. He joins us on the phone now. Good evening, Dr. Michael Molitor.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Michael Molitor, what will Live Earth do for climate change? You're saying that it will raise awareness.
Well, one of our biggest challenges is that most people don't realize that there's simple things they do every day that have a huge impact on this problem. I think we're just trying to show people everywhere around the world that you can understand those things and you can take simple actions. You can be a small part of the problem and a huge part of the solution.
Could not the same effort be invested in taking out a series of ads in TV and radio and print rather than going to this grand but largely empty spectacle of washed-up musos banging out tired old songs?
Well, I spent the last 25 years working on climate change. I'm not a communications or media expert, but I believe that popular culture tells us, and the development of social networks tells us that this is one of the powerful ways of getting messages across in the 21st century.
Yes. Now, are you absolutely certain, because the scientific community can never agree on one thing, and they certainly don't agree on the causes of climate change, are you absolutely certain that human production of heat-trapping gases is the only cause of climate change?
Well, if we're talking about changes that result in increases in temperature, then yes, I think the fingerprint of human emissions, human carbon emissions, is largely responsible for those changes in the global surface temperature of the planet.
Not sure if you've seen any photos of Al Gore recently, your partner in the Live Earth experience, but just how much pollution is emitted from him taking his car constantly through drive-thrus and picking up his lunch?
Well, if he's living in the United States, he's probably emitting a little more carbon than he would be if he was living in Australia.
Mm. Yes.
But I believe he's taking all actions possible to measure his footprint, take actions where he can to reduce his footprint, his carbon footprint. And then in places where he can't take actions to reduce his footprint, to offset those footprints, to buy carbon credits to offset the balance.
The problem is with Gore, his footprints only lead to and from a McDonald's.
Mm. How did you get him involved? Did you trick him and tell him there was a hot dog in the boardroom and suddenly, as soon as he walked in, the door closed and away we go, he's a partner?
I think the chain reaction went the other way. I think he got involved, got Kevin Wall to start this process, and I was brought in through Kevin Wall. So I'm downstream from Mr. Gore.
Okay. What do you say to the very well-credentialed critics of Al Gore, such as the National Academies, the Danish science Bjorn Lomborg, Richard Lindzen, the climatologist from MIT, who all accuse Gore of shrill alarmism? Well,
I mean, that's a matter of subjectivity. I mean, if people feel that his views expressed in his film and in his book are extremism, that's not an argument you want to get into. I've been working on this problem, looking at it for 25 years. I think we need to take dramatic actions to lower our carbon emissions, and I think the consequences could be fairly dramatic. So the way in which you deliver that message, we can argue the extent to which it's done in an alarmist way or it's done in a balanced way. At the end of the day, we've got to get that message out.
Tickets are $95, I believe, in Australia. Exactly where is that money going and what will be done with it?
The majority of the proceeds will go to two types of projects. One, climate change awareness programs in Australia, and we're in the process of looking at candidates for that. And the other portion of the proceeds will go to support large-scale projects that reduce carbon emissions in Australia.
And who's overseeing that and making sure that everything is done above board and you are spending the money where you say you'll spend it?
Well, I believe that PricewaterhouseCoopers, yes, the auditing firm, will be providing a green audit. We will be completely transparent in everything that we do with the green effort and with those funds. So I think we've got global third-party verification of that and an audit, and all of that will be made public.
You've got some wonderful bands playing around the world. The Police getting back together, Madonna, Eskimo Joe here in Australia. How did you convince them to leave their past behind, much of which exacerbated climate or the myth of climate change with their hairspray use?
I can't answer that. I'm not really part of the effort to attract the talent and the artists. My job is to think about all the carbon that's emitted and how do we reduce that and how do we offset it.
Yes, as you said before, both talent and artists, highly subjective terms. China, of course, is possibly the greatest polluter on the planet. Will there be a Live Earth concert in China? And will the Communist Party, the ruling Communist Party of China, will they be present at any of the concerts?
One of the events is taking place in Shanghai, so there is an event in China. I can't confirm whether or not members of the Communist Party of China will be attending, but we will be broadcasting that through China, through one of the large television networks in China.
Because the Chinese political leadership has said the most important thing as far as they're concerned is economic growth, and that ecological concerns take a back seat to that. Considering they contain almost a fifth of the planet's population, the rest of us perhaps walking to work is not going to make a great dent in the whole climate change solution. What do you think of that?
You're right. I mean, China has to be part of the solution, and I think Australia can be part of the solution for China. I mean, we're exporting a lot of technology that's leaving Australia because they can't attract financing, solar technologies and other technologies. We need to see this as a potential enormous opportunity for Australia to export its know-how and its technology to help the Chinese. But you're absolutely right. Australia has about a little less than 2% of the world's emissions, although the highest per capita emissions in the world. And China will quickly pass the United States as the largest emitter as a country in the world. You're absolutely right. There has to be a focus on China, and Australia needs to be a part of that.
Yes.
And this is slightly off the topic, Dr. Michael, but you're also a citizen of France as well as the United States?
Yes, I was raised in France. My mother's French.
And you must be over the moon with the election of Nicolas Sarkozy. And what do you think is in store for France with some of his progressive environmental politics?
Well, I haven't had an opportunity to spend much time reviewing the details of his policy. I know he's made a statement about Kyoto. He's made a statement on climate change. That looks fairly interesting, but I'm not in a position to comment on the politics of Sarkozy.
Yes. There have been some sceptics of climate change who have pointed to the fact that in the past 15,000 years there have been 10 large temperature swings in terms of the history of the planet. What do you say to that?
Well, yes, there have. I mean, they're well documented in the fossil record.
Yes.
But how does that? Are you suggesting that because there have been large natural swings, that the current increase in temperatures could strictly be a function of natural variability?
Yes, it could be the sun.
Well, I think there's been a fair amount of work. It's not really my field of expertise, but there's been a fair amount of work looking at changes in solar output.
Yes.
And even if you assumed the widest possible difference, you can't account for the increase in surface temperature of the planet by even the largest increase in solar output. But again, that's not my field of expertise. I don't think the IPCC is going to, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, is going to say that there's above a 90% level of confidence that we're responsible, that humans are responsible for the increase in surface temperature if something like the sun hadn't been adequately ruled out.
Yes.
Climate change is such a buzzword that you get a lot of hysterical people using it to, in the context of other things, such as the drought, Australia's drought. How do you explain then the current rainfall that has been gripping the country throughout the week?
Well, one of the things the models tell you about the way in which humans are modifying the climate system is that with more energy being trapped in the system, you have a greater change in the hydrological cycle and also greater change in climate and weather variability. So, it's very difficult to look back at the drought, and although CSIRO has said that clearly this long existing drought, the current drought, has a big human fingerprint on it, big changes in rainfall, for example, are the kinds of things you'd expect in a world where a climate system has been modified by human activity. That's exactly the kind of thing that the models predict.
Yes.
I like to think it's a faith-based change in the weather.
Yes.
Because we have been praying.
We prayed.
We pray for rain.
We prayed for rain.
Just like the Prime Minister asked. Have you been praying, Michael?
God bless you. Yes, I have.
Thank you.
Now, so if you just tell us when Live Earth is and where we can see it and all that sort of carry on.
I think you said something about 07.
That's it.
7th of July this year. Live Earth Australia is at Aussie Stadium in Sydney. I believe there's attempts to will be broadcasted across Australia on Foxtel, and there may be the possibility that there'll be venues around Australia where the concert will be shown.
And of course, we salute the recycling that's going on with Crowded House and the police and
Madonna.
The chance to give sluggish back catalogues a bit of a nudge in the old... a shot in the arm as far as sales go. So we certainly salute those artists bravely doing that.
Of course, no great singer-songwriters like Joel Houston or Reuben Morgan or any of the Hillsong Gang performing, but you never know. Time may tell.
I don't see Shannon Knoll headlining Australia, so it's hard to take the whole event seriously. But thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Michael Molitor, a climate change expert working to make Live Earth Australia green.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Yes, there it is.
Food for thought.
Yes. Confident it will generate enough bullshit to compost 1 million trees.
Is that so?
Yes.
That's the aim.
This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J. It is Restoring the Balance on Triple J. You are with Spencer Penrose from the Family First Party, myself, Young Liberal, Stirling Addison, 2 hours of conservative comment that appears, of course, the ABC has attempted to shunt it to the back end of the last, or I should say the first day of the week.
We are still here.
We are still here.
That's right.
We are still here. We will not be moved. We're like civil rights protesters in the 60s. We shall not be moved.
But with better music.
Yes.
Kind of. Unfortunately,
yes.
It is programmed.
The odd good track sneaks through accidentally. We are asking 1300 0555 36. David Hicks is back in the country, Spencer.
And on his way back, he was actually given luxury treatment. This is outrageous. He was allowed to watch one full movie.
A full movie?
A movie. He was allowed to watch a film. Like you and I, travelling interstate or perhaps overseas on one of our summer or winter jaunts.
Yes.
I'd like to go to my Spanish home every summer and just chill out. And on the way over, on the flight, you will watch a film.
You will.
And that's the kind of treatment that Hicks was given on his flight from Cuba to Adelaide. How should we continue to punish him here in Australia as well? He is in Yatala prison in Adelaide. And what movie do you think he watched while he was on the plane?
This is what we are speculating. Brad from Melbourne, did you want to weigh into this or into the topic of how we should further punish him? He is, after all, only in jail he will only have served 5 years for the crime of trying to kill freedom. Brad, what do you think?
Firstly, guys, I just wondered where redemption fitted into all this, because I know you're both good Christians.
Yes.
And as far as the movie's concerned, he probably watched Black Hawk Down.
Yes.
To remind him of the days when he was fighting alongside the US in the Balkans.
People do question sometimes Australia's commitment to the greater war on terror, and I will point out, and I often do, that we did give Eric Banner to the war on terror, as evidenced by Black Hawk Down. As for our compassion, are you asking for Christian compassion, Brad?
Yes, and redemption.
For a Muslim who took up arms against us?
For every human being.
I have limitless compassion and sympathy for any fellow Anglican in Vaucluse in Sydney. That is where my Christian compassion fairly much ends.
Understandable.
Speaking of the war on terror, boys, within the Christian faith there isn't really any room for a war, is there, or a just fight?
Only room for peace. Jesus was, of course, a peacemaker, the greatest peacemaker. Blessed are the peacemakers.
If your enemy's hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink.
Yes.
Well, within the Islamic faith, there's actually room for retaliation.
Yes.
Where the aggressor is condemned.
Jihad.
Yes.
Yes.
So you're answering your own question there, Brad.
Well, I'm just saying that people of the Muslim world, actually, some of them aren't actually doing anything wrong by their faith, where the people in the West are not staying true to their faith.
How are we not staying true? But what, by defending ourselves from terror? By preemptively striking terror where it rests?
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said preemptively striking.
Yes.
Where does that fit into the Bible and the New Testament?
Well, if your eye offends you, poke it out. Work with me. Extend the logic there.
Isn't it?
It's in there, Brad. I assure you.
I think it's a commandment. Thou shalt not tolerate Saddam giving comfort to Al-Qaeda in Baghdad.
There's some creative writing going on.
That's in there, Brad.
It's a broad interpretation.
That's in there.
It surely is.
Thank you, Brad.
Okay, thank you, gents.
Dan from Brisbane.
I had to let you know that I heard your colossal Freudian slip.
Which was?
You mentioned Bill Hicks.
I've never heard of him.
I don't believe you. I think you may have revealed your true colours.
Bill Hicks is who?
He's a great comedian.
Great comedian. So he's organising Live Earth, is he?
Not familiar.
He may be involved. But
he wrote a routine called Global Warming, did he?
No.
So he does some sort of comedy japery, sort of stand-up comic sort of gear.
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
And
great man. Great man.
And where can we see him perform?
He's no longer with us.
Oh.
Good.
But I think you.
Good.
Yeah.
He doesn't sound like the sort of person we need in this day and age. So it's a good thing he is actually passed. You can't say died anymore at
No.
Triple J. You've got to say past.
Yes. Left your physical self.
Yeah. Yes.
It's non-denominational dying.
I would like to think he has gone to the next world to receive judgment. And from what I've heard, from the snippet Dan has given us, I'm guessing the judgment will be thumbs down and crueler than anything Carl Sandilands could deliver on Australian Idol.
I understand this Bill Hicks character, Dan, he was a political comic, something like that. He was pro-Bush, pro-Iraq War.
No, definitely not.
Well, he surely is burning in the deepest depths of fiery hell.
Doesn't sound like someone I'd like.
Thank you, Dan. Neil from Brisbane. Neil,
Hello,
good evening.
Sterling.
We're very well. How's Brisbane this evening?
In fine form, Sterling.
Excellent.
It's rather warm.
Excellent.
I was just bringing in regards to what we should do to David Hicks.
Yes.
I think we should have a bit of fun with him. I think we should get him in his cell and sit him down and say, look, David, you're going to be on enough rope.
Yes.
And keep telling him for a couple of days and then just see the look on his face when he sees the gallows.
Oh, okay.
Enough rope.
I see. And do you think this is the trick they pulled with Saddam?
Oh, I just think they,
I wouldn't be surprised to see him interviewed on the ABC, to be frank, before he passed away.
Yes.
I think
Saddam Hussein.
Denton's probably a bit too left for Saddam Hussein.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly. The longest part of the program, Neil, would be the extended embrace that Denton would give him as a fellow America hater, as
Indeed.
evidenced by Denton's documentary, hate-filled documentary on American evangelists in America.
It would be something
of all places
resembling a reach-around.
Yes,
I imagine many.
Neil, what would be more interesting, the interview with Hicks before his trip to the gallows or after?
Well, I think he'd still probably be rather stiff either way.
Yes, well said.
It'd make more sense afterwards, I think.
Yes.
Oh, I dare say.
I think he would. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Sterling.
Pierce from Sydney. Not Pierce Ackerman.
Oh,
no, unfortunately. No.
Pierce versus Piers.
Yeah.
Are you Pierce or Piers?
Pierce, actually.
Pierce, as in body piercing, as in everything a Triple J listener has below the belt. Of course, you wouldn't honour Prince Alfred any other way, would you?
No.
By studying his reign or his particular period in English world history. You would honour him by putting a staple through your penis.
A railway sleeper through your wang.
Do you have you tampered with God's gift?
No, and I do not plan to at all. I
Good.
think that is just something that most Triple J listeners would probably do. As you said, I mean, I don't listen to Triple J very often.
Excellent.
I only really turn over for this program, and
Excellent.
that's about it, really.
Excellent.
I'd stick to quality commercial television and radio.
Commercial radio as well, yes. What's your favourite commercial radio station?
I'm a big fan of Nova at the moment.
Yes.
But,
yes.
I mean, Kyle and Jackie O, like as you mentioned earlier on today, how could you go wrong?
Also,
speak the truth of mainstream
Triple M,
Australia.
I'm quite pleased with now.
Yes.
I'm seeing is Will Anderson has now gone over. He's left.
He's defected.
He's defected to the commercial, so
he's been
very
lured.
pleasing. Yeah.
Lured by big bucks. It happens to everybody.
You're not Australian if you don't, as far as I'm concerned. So.
That's right. Pierce, you sound like us in that you believe the free market should deliver quality commercial radio entertainment.
Absolutely.
That should be left in the hands of the free market.
That's exactly right. None of this communist public broadcasting.
Yes,
I mean, seriously, it died with the Soviet Russia. It's gone.
You'd
Let
like
go,
to think
people.
it did.
It's a propaganda tool.
Yeah, exactly right. Let go.
Now, Pierce, how do we punish David Hicks further?
Well, it depends. I mean, from a conservative point of view, I mean, I can't think of anything worse than watching the crap that's spat on the ABC at the moment. Referring to, I think, one of the earlier callers, I mean, two programs that come to mind, or three in the past 3 weeks, Bastard Boys, Curtin, and Julian Morrow and his comrades at the Chasers War and everything.
Yes. It's trouble all over, isn't it? And then for extra punishment, why not lay on a bit of ABC too? So have one TV in the corner of the cell and in the other corner of the cell, the one on the left saying ABC and the one on the right screening ABC too.
It's amazing, ABC too. I mean, I've been watching it. Actually, for some god unknown reason, I've been watching the late night sports on ABC too. And I mean, why does the ABC not recognise the sponsorship of these marvellous sporting competitions in all these states? I mean, talk about getting rid, suppressing the free trade. I mean, they don't call the. I can think of the Tui's new cup in Sydney, not calling it by its proper name. It's just ridiculous, really.
It is. So there we go. David Hicks in a cell just watching the ABC. In solitary. ABC's best rating figures ever.
Yes.
I think.
I would call that a wankathon. Yes, I would. Pierce, the irony, of course, of the Tui's decision is that most of the programming decisions here are made after drinking slabs of the stuff.
Yeah, well, apparently by the sounds of it, but no, they wouldn't mention the name of the beer, though.
No.
Oh, God, no.
No, they wouldn't. Pierce,
draft, yes.
Yes, you're the sort of caller we need more of in this country. Thank you for joining us.
Not a problem.
Restoring the balance on Triple J. Shortly, we're speaking to... we're maintaining the environmental theme and somebody who seems to think that the way to cure the environmental ills of the world is something called ZPG, zero population growth. And we'll see if he is committed to the cause, and we'll give him a gun and lock him in a room and say, if you really care about the planet, you know what to do. His name is Professor John Gilboard. At the moment, however, we are speaking to Dr. Michael Wesley. He's the director of the Griffith Asia Pacific Research Institute at Griffith University and author of The Howard Paradox. No, the paradox being that when Howard came into power... spiteful, bitter, alcoholically fueled Keating raged that Howard would not be accepted in the region because he was an Asia hater, but as we've pointed out many times in this program.
And we knew it was a parting joke at the time. It was his closer.
Yes.
That was his big closer.
Yes, it went down like a lead balloon.
Yes, but we laughed because we knew him to be wrong.
As we've said many times in this program, if Howard hated Asia so much, why has he exported so many manufacturing jobs there?
This is a good point.
Why has he given them to the more competitive nations?
That's Exhibit A right there.
Thank you. But the Howard paradox being, apparently Howard could not work with Asia. He was seen as too fixed in the past. Yet he enjoys a considerable standing in the region.
A blossoming relationship.
And here to talk about that is Dr. Michael Wesley. Dr. Wesley, thank you for joining us this evening.
You're most welcome.
Now, can you talk us through, can you expand on the Howard paradox that I've set up in your intro?
Well, basically, when the Howard government first came to power, there are a number of things that made a whole lot of commentators on the region give a collective sharp intake of breath. They thought that here was a government who was manifestly uncomfortable with Asianness, with Asia itself, with Asian people, and after the heady successes of the Keating Gareth Evan years, we would enter a long sort of darkness in terms of our relationships with Asia.
Yes. Do you not think, though, that the Keating terms were marked by excessive kowtowing to the regime in Indonesia?
Certainly there was a very close relationship with the Suharto regime in Indonesia. Keating and Suharto had a very close and very personal relationship, and you might say that Keating milked that relationship for all it was worth.
Yes.
In a lot of ways, we achieved a great deal, particularly in relationship to the APEC leaders' meetings on the back of that Keating-Suharto relationship.
And how do you place our relationship with Indonesia at the moment? Is it better under Howard than it was with Keating in overall terms?
Well, ironically, I would say that the Howard-Yudhoyono relationship at the moment parallels very strongly the Keating-Suharto relationship. Again, more than 10 years into the future, you've got a very close personal relationship between John Howard and Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono. and it is a strong relationship that persists above and beyond some of the reservations that the people within Indonesia and Australia have, just in the same way that Keating and Suharto's relationship persisted despite very strong reservations that people had about that relationship.
Heaven forbid, if Kevin Rudd does happen to win the election this year, which won't happen, but if it does happen to happen, do you think that the relationship will be as strong with our Asian neighbours?
Oh, look, I think this has become a fairly strong bipartisan position now. I think both sides of politics, even though they may differ on how to keep the relationship strong, are very keen to keep the relationship strong, if for no other reason that Australia's prosperity depends on it. And I think certainly the strong relationship with China, with Japan, with other countries in the Asian region is going to be a very strong priority, irrespective of which party wins this year's federal election.
Dr. Wesley, the 1997 Asian economic crisis, Australia provided a secure port in that particular storm. How much did the strong leadership of John Howard through that enhance the standing of Australia in the region?
Oh, look, I think that was a seminal event. I'm not sure as to how much Howard's strong leadership made a difference as to how much Australia's strong economic performance made a difference. I mean, Here was an event that brought most of our major trading partners to their knees in the region, and Australia's economy kept on sailing through it relatively unscathed. And I think that had an important psychological effect in Australia and in the Asian region. How much that was to do with John Howard's leadership, I'm uncertain. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact, for instance, that a lot of the investment that flowed out of the Asian region actually flowed into Australia at the time. Not sure how much that had to do with Howard's leadership itself.
Let's assume it was 100% due to that leadership.
Well, if that's the case, then Howard pulled off a major coup. I mean, that was a seminal event. I mean, prior to the Asian economic crisis, we had 10 to 15 years of Asian leaders like Lee Kuan Yew telling us that that we were a country of the past, that we were dogged with economic problems, that Asia was rising, Asia was the place of the future, Australia was sort of the poor cousin in the region. And then almost overnight, with the Asian economic crisis, we had the situations reversed. We had Australia called the economic strongman of Asia by the Howard government, and the Asian countries which were in all sorts of economic turmoil, and suddenly we were the economic success story and they were the economic basket cases. And that had a really important psychological effect, I think.
Dr. Michael, can I ask you, you mentioned China before and obviously the Dalai Lama in the news this week. Are Rudd and Howard correct to be apprehensive about meeting with the Dalai Lama?
Well, what both Rudd and Howard realise is that the Chinese can react very strongly to any foreign government or foreign opposition meeting with the Dalai Lama. The Chinese have demonstrated in the past that they're prepared to really kick up a stink about anyone in positions of power meeting with the Dalai Lama. Howard remembers back in 1996 when he met with the Dalai Lama as Prime Minister. He'd just come to office, and the Chinese really made things uncomfortable for him, and I think Rudd realises that as well. And they both simply think that the cost of the possibility of the Chinese becoming really upset is not worth any sort of positive benefits that might flow from actually meeting with the Dalai.
Yes, yes. We can react strongly to Chinese as well. Some sweet and sour pork I had recently had me in the toilet for an hour, 3 hours. It was a no-go area. I don't want to take the black armband view on that particular gastric reaction, so I won't. We'll leave it there. Dr. Michael Wesley, the director of the Griffith Asia Pacific Research Institute at Griffith University, and he's the author of The Howard Paradox. No, the Howard Paradox is not, how can a man so good-looking be at the same time so smart? That's not the paradox.
No, it's a bigger paradox.
It is a bigger paradox. And a paradox, for most Triple J listeners, is something they wear on their feet. Yes.
Right.
Yes. A paradox. Yes, think about it.
A company which itself has shipped off to Asia.
Of course it has.
They're now made in Asia, the docks.
Of course they are.
You know about that, Michael?
Yes, indeed.
Probably wearing them at the moment. Thank you very much, Dr. Michael Wesley, for joining us.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Restoring the balance on Triple J. What a week it has been for our leader, John Howard, our wartime leader.
Yes.
Who we will not see idolised in an ABC mini-series.
No, of course
such as Curtin. We will never see that.
It would never happen. I mean, we suggested last week that perhaps they could spend some time on a Menzies mini-series.
Yes.
And the only actor that I could think of, because Menzies had the brilliant grey hair and the greyish sort of blonde and the black eyebrows. Isabel Lucas is the only one I could come up with.
John Wood.
John Wood, of course, was the other suggestion.
And would love to do it. But the Prime Minister this week has been assailed on all fronts. There are accusations that the $20 million he has spent, $20 million spent maintaining two houses, Kirribilli and the Lodge, has been somehow a waste of public money.
How can you live with just one house, though? It's important for the most powerful man in the country.
Exactly. He needs two houses. And I will say this, the outrageous accusation that he's spent over $100,000, it's something like $120,000 in actual fact, on restocking the wine cellar.
Right.
I will say this, leading the country is thirsty work.
That's fine.
And he is entitled to spend that money as he sees fit.
Well, it would be doubled if the Roman Catholic Kevin Rudd won the election this year.
Well said. That would be $120,000 a week. Not only that, the money spent, the $20 million, is not necessarily wasted. It is improving the house. He is improving. Our money has been wisely invested by Jeanette, who has overseen, I believe, some of the interior decorating.
Yes.
So we should rest easy that money there was well spent, as opposed to the money spent on bastard boys.
Right, okay. Oh, that would have all gone on wigs.
Yes,
bad
Bill
wigs.
Kelty wigs. Bill Kelty wigs, yes.
Corrigan wigs.
Go to a joke shop. They'll be coming to you soon. The Prime Minister was furious about bastard boys this week. And he had every right to be infuriated by the airtime and taxpayers' money given to fund a distorted, ideologically driven view on industrial relations. So the best way to actually balance that would have been to put in some work choice ads.
Indeed.
Halfway through.
I think, absolutely.
Put in those ads.
It was very one-sided, and it was a most frustrating program to watch because you looked at all the union members. They were very cuddly.
Yes.
They spent a lot of time with their kids.
Yes.
They were conflicted. And then, of course, you cut to Chris Corrigan, and basically they were just playing the Wicked Witch of the West music from Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
Whenever he walked onto screen.
I haven't seen it, but I've been told reliably by a partner in my law firm that the scene where Corrigan comes home and drains the blood from a child and drinks that.
That was particularly disturbing. But apparently the truth. It was a docudrama, according to the ABC.
Docudrama. That, amongst all the lies and distortions I would believe, that I would believe.
It was a Dracudrama.
Well said. Well said. So we are talking about the $44 million being invested by the government at the moment, informing you, I cannot say work choices. That has been expunged from the lexicon. It has been expurgated. We no longer in the Liberal Party say that word. Work choices. We are no longer allowed to say that. We are wanting to talk about the $44 million being spent on educating the people who are benefiting from the radical change in industrial relations that is benefiting everyone in the country.
It's a community service.
Yes.
I don't think you can spend enough.
And so the government has said, we will not benefit from this. These are information commercials.
Right.
Infomercials. They inform. And there have been complaints about this spending. But what is a defenceless government to do in the face of a $100 million advertising onslaught from the union movement?
That's right.
So this $44 million of public money is, I guess, the return salvo in the face of union thuggery that has again been laid bare on bastard boys. I've come full circle.
That is a good point, beautifully illustrated.
Yes. So we're asking if, and this is a free kick to the Triple J audience tonight, Spencer. The $44 million, which we believe is being spent adequately, properly, the right way, on the work choice ads.
Well, don't say it, because every time you say it, you have to put some money into the work choices jar.
Yeah, but you just
said it. So
you go.
Well, put me down for $10.
Okay.
Because it might float through the transom throughout the evening.
Yes.
But I won't say it anymore.
Okay.
But we'll commit it, and we can put it to the young Liberals.
No, it's going to pay off the $1,000 fine that Alan Jones got about 8 weeks ago. But the $44 million being spent on informing you of the new industrial relations landscape, the revitalised landscape. How would you see that money spent otherwise, perhaps?
Myself, I would like it committed to my church.
Yes.
I mean, I know that seems to be, but we're always after, whatever we could get. Because this week, with the rain, a lot of the farmers complaining about the rain. Isn't that amazing how that happens?
Yes.
There's drought, and then the rain comes, and then suddenly their tractors are getting bogged.
Yes.
And they're not happy.
Well, they'll get drought relief, and we hope flooding relief from the federal government.
There's an idea. Because we had to cancel because of the rain. I know you had to cancel your game of golf.
Yes.
I had to cancel our annual four-wheel drive and boat drinking water car wash barbecue that we hold every single year, with proceeds going to the church, obviously.
Yes.
So I guess, that means we have to, once again, draw on our tithing fund. And that's where the money could come in handy.
Yes.
We need obviously, appropriately, the money we save for a rainy day.
Ah, well said.
Once we had to cancel the barbecue. But that's what I would like to see.
Yes.
We've got many, many wonderful ideas, blueprints, schematics, bigger car parks,
yes.
More space given to the gym, a different basketball court. We'd like to get some more basketball courts happening, some more electrical instruments,
yes,
some more pyrotechnics for our Christmas show, that kind of thing. These are the ideas. $44 million, we could easily do with that.
So if we didn't spend the $44 million on the advertisements, the IR advertisements, I would prefer to see the money on an export drive over in America.
Okay.
In America, an export drive. If we got behind Shannon Knoll, and just said, we are committed to this for the long term. We have deep pockets. We have $44 million. We will break him in America. And that we are, at present, selfishly, I think, sitting on this man. And he needs a broader canvas.
He needs to find a bigger audience, get Shannon Knoll tapping into the US.
Yes.
I think was Drive, written by Bryan Adams? Let's start with Canada and work our way down, because I think that's the perfect entree.
There would be a gravitational inevitability about his success.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, we go in through the back door, so to speak.
Indeed.
And I'm not casting aspersions.
Of course.
I'm not casting aspersions. So how would you spend the $44 million that the government is educating us with at the moment on IR changes? 1300 055 36. 1300 055 36. Restoring the balance. Sisters, it is ABC law that you must address females working in the building as either sister or comrade.
Comfortable shoes,
yes.
I think was the name.
To give you an example, you start the day off saying, nice dungarees, sister or comrade.
Well, that's the official greeting. And then where it can go, who knows?
Well, I can tell you where it goes.
Where?
Lesbianistan.
Oh.
Yes.
The new country that you formed last week.
Correct. Yes. Now, we were speaking earlier about the Prime Minister being furious about the airtime and the taxpayers' money given to fund the distorted, ideologically driven view of industrial relations that is bastard boys. We compared and contrasted that with the government's position-neutral work choices ads.
It's merely an informative pamphlet.
Which serve only to inform workers of the exciting new landscape that they face in the workplace. There have been criticisms that the $44 million being spent on educating us on this could be spent better elsewhere.
I think not.
We think not either. But the position that we take on this program, that the $44 million is in effect an early way of spending the future fund. It is a wise investment.
Before, the future fund, before it is pillaged by the Labor government with their fruity broadband plans.
Yes. Yes.
Doesn't that seem like old news now?
Well, it certainly does, and I know that the Triple J listener would much prefer to see baby boomers get a generous government pension rather than see themselves get high-speed internet.
That's right. Well, what is more important?
It's called sacrifice. Brad from Melbourne.
Stirling.
Brad, where would you prefer to see this $44 million go?
Oh, the public health and education system.
Yes.
Always lacking in funds.
I would say it's overindulged.
The public...
not enough tennis courts or shooting galleries.
There are at private schools. There are at private schools.
Yes, but we can't all be born with a silver spoon in our mouth, can we?
That means not all of us are working hard enough or haven't inherited wisely.
Let me give you a notable alumni of the public education system.
Mao Zedong.
David Hicks.
David Hicks.
Just jetted into Australia today, Brad.
Yes.
Well, yes.
All due to public education.
Yes, doing very well for himself. The class reunion.
Julian Knight went to a private school, I do believe.
And he is?
Westbourne Grammar.
Yes.
Yes.
And he is?
Julian Knight.
Yes.
Hoddle Street Massacre.
Thank you for lifting the mood.
That's why you need those the shooting galleries.
Yes.
And those things that you suggested earlier in the call, Brad. The basketball courts and
the swimming pools.
The swimming pools, that's it.
Well, Brad, you're obviously, with rabid left-wing views, obviously a product of the public system yourself, so we'll let you go back to the commune. They're obviously passing the bucket bong around, and you're probably late for singing the Internationale and saluting the picture of Lenin in the lounge room. So you went to where?
Public and private, actually.
Surely the private should have knocked out the left-wing stupidity.
Well, I was kindly asked to leave.
Yes, I can see why.
As they do, if they think you're going to blemish their record and maybe not pass the next year.
Yes, you see, they are smarter than you. Obviously. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Alec from Ballarat.
Hello.
Alec, the $44 million that's being spent to educate us about the changed IR landscape, if you could, where else would you spend it?
I wouldn't change it. I'd perhaps give a little bit more to the Young Liberals Association, but apart from that, I think the government's doing a bang-up job.
Thank you.
It's a great idea.
Yes.
The Young Liberals.
We don't even need to speak anymore to Alec
no.
from Ballarat. So thank you, Alec.
Great idea.
It's Alec, as in Alec Guinness, as in the black liquid that fuels the Irish economy.
No, it's not. Just Alec.
Just Alec. Oh, you're a rock star or a taxi driver. Just one name.
No.
Well, now we know.
I see.
Now we know. We'll look you up next time we're in Ballarat.
But he feels that the money is being spent in the right place, and I like the way he thinks.
Stephen from the Sunshine Coast, hopefully a fellow traveller of Alec, and Spencer and I.
Well, yeah, I think that the government reminds us very often that it was never intended to be abused, these new laws, so that people were sacked and then re-employed on lower wages, for example.
Yes.
I think that the businesses that do find themselves accidentally doing this should get some of that money in legal defence funds.
That is possibly the most brilliant thing said on the show this evening. Are you talking? People who are sacked by the company and then rehired on a lower wage and complain about it, Stephen, are taking a rather black armband view of their situation, aren't they?
They're not seeing that they can renegotiate later on.
Yes.
And possibly push their wage further up or further down if they keep their attitude.
That is inherent. That flexibility is inherent in the new legislation.
Well, this is right. And the unions keep trotting out dozens of these cases where people have got to do, 48 hours notice to have sick leave, etc.
Yes.
They keep managing to find these things where obviously there's some sort of loophole that's been missed. And I'm sure it's not on purpose, but the companies get sued. So if they have some access to a fighting fund to cover their legal costs, then there'd be a smoother transition into the new laws.
This is a great idea from Stephen. A future fund, something that they can dip their hands into to defend themselves. Small mum and dad owned corporations.
Yes.
When they're looking for a helping hand.
Yes.
When they're taken on by these slug-like ex-employees.
Yes.
This is wonderful thinking, Stephen.
I would... times it by 10, have $440 million and give, say, mining companies first dibs, if you would. It's a brilliant idea, Stephen. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Leanna from Byron Bay, did I get your name right?
No, it's Liana, actually.
Liana. What sort of name is Liana?
Oh, I've got no idea, really.
Yes.
Yes.
How's Byron Bay this evening?
Oh, it's a little chilly, actually.
Really?
Yeah, but that's okay.
Right, well, just wrap yourself tighter in some dole checks.
Sure thing.
If you're in Byron Bay.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
No. How would you like to see the $44 million that's being spent on educating workers about exciting new opportunities that exist under the IR changes?
Well, I think one very educated worker that could use $44 million might be the CEO from Macquarie Bank.
Macquarie are a proud sponsor of this show.
That's
We're
right,
talking
yes.
about Alan Moss.
That's what I'm talking about, yes.
Yes.
Yes, I think he could use a little bit more in his pocket.
Just a little cherry on the top.
Yeah, why not? He does a bang-up job. So,
he does?
Yeah, he's worth every penny and more.
$33 million was his remuneration this year, much of which is,
So
I will say, Leanna, much of which is bonus.
That's right.
Not flat wage, bonus, meaning...
Just raise it by 10% and he's sweet.
Well, this is an Australian company flying the flag overseas for us and generating income offshore. And we shouldn't be too quick to judge. And $33 million, I think, is restrained in the current environment. He is I think, Australian of the Year for returning outstanding shareholder value.
Absolutely, and I like Liana's thinking that he should get even more.
Yes.
You're talking long days at work here. I mean, this is all, in a sense, it's danger money. Because he is working very long days.
Yes.
How much would he see his family?
Not much.
How many weekends would he have free?
None.
I doubt whether he had any holidays throughout the year.
Yes.
$33 million I think that's more than fine. And even an extra $44 million, I like the way she thinks.
It would cushion the blow. $77 million a year. I think I like those numbers.
And even then, probably not enough.
Probably. Well, we hope he's structured his income and taxes accordingly and sensibly. Thank you, Liana from Byron Bay. It is restoring the balance on Triple J. Spencer and Stirling here. That's Simian Mobile Disco. I got this down. It is the feature album on Triple J. And Spencer, you had a very incisive comment about it.
Well, I was just thinking the Simian Mobile Disco. Is that not the other name for Triple J?
Yes.
Is it not?
Yes.
And is that not where the announcers are taken from, the Mobile Disco?
Yes, Simian Mobile Disco.
And afterwards taken to?
To me, it sounds like a description of the Dalia Lama's road show, almost.
I see.
And we were talking earlier about what a terrorist he is and how John Howard should not meet him and what a dangerous man he is. And I have disagreed sharply with my fiancée Penny on the issue of the Dalai Lama. And she is such a fan, in fact, that she has taken up yoga with a male instructor, and she spent most of the weekend with him.
Good for
her. When I saw her, she was on the mobile phone excitedly talking about some new yoga positions that she had learnt from this particular male ex-athlete. And I'd never heard of the Viennese oyster or the pile driver or, tossing the salad.
I've never heard of any of those. The reverse cowgirl, though, I am familiar with. The salad toss is something new and different. But, there's many exciting things happening in the area of yoga, and indeed...
the daisy chain or the airtight.
Right.
I've searched through countless yoga books, I haven't seen any.
Yes.
Or the sandwich. But we are to talk now about a radical ecological solution to the problems of the planet. Spencer, there is a man who asked a very challenging question. I don't know where you stand on this. The question is, are babies bad for the planet?
Right. This is difficult. What he's saying is that for the planet to have fewer babies,
yes,
and that way it would be less of a drag on the environment.
Making the term Mother Earth bitterly ironic.
Very difficult to sell because you're asking women here to sacrifice their only contribution to society, and how it will go down only time will tell.
Yes, is it a one-child policy for Australia? He is Professor John Guilbeault, and he is from the green think tank Optimum Population UK. He's a professor, now emeritus professor of family planning and reproductive health, the world's first practicing gynaecologist to be given a personal chair in specialty. He joins us on the phone now. Good evening, Professor Guilbault. I hope I got the pronunciation of your French surname correct.
Correct. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can. Now,
one of you Sterling, one of you Spencer.
Yes, I'm Stirling. If you could just quickly paint your contention, Professor. How do you best propose saving the planet?
Let me explain the situation. Basically, the production of carbon dioxide, for example, which you know is the biggest problem at the moment in regard to global warming, is a problem of the number of the per-person production multiplied by the number of persons, yeah?
Yes.
And so if you're thinking of North America, the States, which produces 25% of the problem, every extra North American that comes along is obviously going to produce a lot more carbon dioxide than other people in other parts of the world, and therefore it's better to have fewer added-on people in America. But it actually also applies to the UK or to Australia, where it's a much lower level of per-person consumption, but it's still useful to have less of us. So what we're saying is quite simply, if you're wanting to carbon offset, if you're wanting to reduce your impact on the planet, the most effective thing you could possibly do as a couple is to have one child less than you otherwise planned.
Yes.
If you realize, for example, if you have one child less, just one, I mean, you might want 4, you have 3. You might want 3, you want 2. But if you're having one child less, that is equivalent to not driving 3 million miles in a Toyota Prius car.
Yes.
3 million miles worth of not producing carbon dioxide by having one less child.
Well, it's interesting. You're really speaking to the converted here on Triple J, Professor John, because there is absolutely no chance that any of the Triple J listeners will have children with their alternative lifestyles.
Yes, especially the chemically castrated ones.
That's right. Lazy sperm.
Yes.
I don't want to say homosexuality and so on.
Yes.
So, I mean, really, no. But how's your message been received by the world at large?
Well, a mixed bag of reception, really, because a lot of people only hear half the story and they think one's being anti-babies and all that kind of thing. Well, we're not. We're just anti-too many babies. You know that there are an extra 75 million people in the world every year. A city the size of 1 million people has to be built every 5 days. And if you think of the habitat destruction that causes and the carbon dioxide that a city would produce, to have a new one every 5 days is just nuts. Well, that's in the world as a whole. But as I say, if you look at the... I mean, your John Howard wants more Australians, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, Costello,
yes.
Yes.
I mean,
there's no such thing as too many Australians.
I've been to Australia 6 times, and I think it's a wonderful place, fantastic. But you have to face it, you're the driest continent in the world, and the whole of your middle is desert, isn't it?
Yes.
So if you talk to the scientists, as I have, they say that probably the 21 million you've got is probably about right. You may not be overpopulated, but you're certainly not underpopulated.
We could easily do without anyone who votes Labour. So that would, if we got rid of them, we'd have a comfortable conservative and ecologically sustainable conservative population.
Yes.
We're not looking for machine guns here, folks. We're looking for condoms. And
well,
we're not wanting...
you're a little late as far as putting it on before you put it in when it comes to Labour voters. Extending your logic, Professor Guilbault, Chairman Mao killed, roughly speaking, 100 million people. Does that make him the greatest environmentalist the world has ever known?
No. No, absolutely not. We're not talking elevating the death rate. I mean, I'm a doctor, for heaven's sake. What I see is that we doctors did a good thing when we brought in death control with all our public health measures and all the good things we did in the 19th century.
Yes.
But we didn't bring in the birth control in parallel. And actually, also, we're not blaming anybody who's got a large family now. We're just thinking that young people who listen to your program, who perhaps haven't started having children yet, they might take the environment into consideration when they decide. Having a baby is a big decision, isn't it? And when you take it, the environment should be part of your thinking. That's what they're saying.
Is there something to be said for the fact that the diseases in some way serve a purpose, and in many ways, you being a doctor and maybe many of your doctor friends have fought to cure diseases and what have you? I mean, has that had a detrimental effect in the overpopulation of the planet?
Not at all. Not if we'd done the common sense thing, which is to balance it with family planning. I mean, I'm a specialist in family planning. We could have continue to be just as vigorous as we rightly are to stop people dying from diseases. We just need family planning as well to bring things into balance. You know, at the moment we have 135 million births a year in the world, and there's only about 50 million deaths, so you finish up with an extra 75 million people.
Yes.
Bring in the family planning, and you bring things into balance. So it's nothing about increasing deaths. We don't want to do that. We just want to balance the number of births.
Unless it's the Day of Judgment. Which...
How do you mean?
Well, which would see the final judgment.
Well, some people wonder if we are going to, in this century even, make the world so uninhabitable that there will be mega deaths on an unheard of scale, not in terms of millions, but in terms of billions. But that's what we're trying to avoid, surely, Stirling. We don't want that.
Yes. Professor Guilbeault, we've seen the introduction of a one-child policy in China. Is it thinkable, to coin a phrase, is it conscionable that such a program could be enacted in the West?
It doesn't need enacting, actually, because people are choosing. They're voting with their bodies to have smaller families already.
Except for the Irish.
Yes.
Yeah. In some countries in Europe, they're down to almost like that. But the more important thing to say is that if we do nothing in the world about family planning, as we should, if we fail to do what we should do, then I think more countries will follow China's example as they find themselves just not able to cope with the numbers they've got. But that isn't to be put down to people like myself. We would say that would happen because people hadn't listened in time. If things get too drastic, that might come about. But what we would like is proper resourcing of international family planning to make it unnecessary for any country to feel so desperate as to go down the China road.
Yes, and
because actually the two-child family is the obvious, logical one, isn't it? Because you're replacing yourself.
Yes.
On a finite planet with two-thirds of its ocean and half of the rest of it desert, it's ludicrous to go on having more and more people. We should be in balance, and 2 is a good guideline.
Thank you for joining us, Professor John Guilbeault from the green think tank Optimum Population UK. This has been Restoring the Balance on Triple J.
Triple J.